Welcome back to HN What's Your Say, where we discuss the stories that matter the most, the truths that get buried, and the injustices that demand our attention. Today we're revisiting a topic we've covered before, one that continues to spark heated debate and unanswered questions, and that's the case of R. Kelly. Specifically, and we're focusing on the controversial actions of two government prosecutors, Angel Kroll and Elizabeth Geddes, whose relentless pursuit of a conviction against R. Kelly raises serious questions about justice, fairness and hidden agendas. Buckle up, because we're about to unpack a story that goes far beyond the courtroom. A story that points to corporate greed, broken laws and one major beneficiary, Sony Records. Let's get into it. If you've followed our previous episodes, you know we've called out the troubling behavior of prosecutors Angel Kroll and Elizabeth Geddes. These two individuals were tasked with upholding the law and ensuring justice was served in a fair and impartial manner. But what we've seen in R. Kelly's case is anything but fair. Time and time again, Kroll and Geddes demonstrated a determination to secure a conviction at all costs, even if it meant bending or outright breaking the laws they were sworn to uphold. Their actions weren't just aggressive, they were in many documented instances illegal. Now, we've said before that the full extent of their misconduct is a topic for another day, and we'll stick to that promise. But what we can't ignore is the pattern of behavior that suggests something deeper was at play. These prosecutors weren't just doing their jobs. They were on a mission. A mission that led to R. Kelly receiving what amounts to an indirect life sentence of 30 years he did not deserve. Let's pause for a moment to consider what that means. 30 years. For a man whose music defined generations, whose voice and creativity shaped the sound of R&B from back in the 90s, that's a sentence that effectively erases his future. And while the charges against R. Kelly may have sounded serious, the way this case was prosecuted raises red flags. Kroll and Geddes didn't just pursue justice. They pursued a vendetta. Their tactics, as we've discussed in prior videos, included documented violations of legal standards. These weren't minor oversights, they were deliberate choices that undermined the integrity of the judicial process. From withholding evidence to pressuring witnesses, their actions suggest a goal that went beyond holding R. Kelly accountable. It suggests a concerted effort to ensure he was locked away no matter what it took. But why? Why would two prosecutors go to such lengths, even breaking the law, to secure this outcome? What drove them to push the boundaries of justice so far? That's the question we've been asking, and it's a question that still lingers unanswered. Who were they serving? Who stood to gain from R. Kelly's downfall? To answer that, we need to follow the money. And when we do, one name keeps coming up: Sony Records. Let's talk about Sony Records, the powerhouse record label that R. Kelly was tied to for much of his career. As we've mentioned in our previous videos, Sony stands out as the biggest beneficiary in this entire saga. When R. Kelly was convicted and sentenced to 30 years, it wasn't just his freedom that was taken. It was his ability to control and profit from his music catalog. That catalog, filled with hits like I Believe I Can Fly, Ignition Remix and countless others, is a goldmine. It's a body of work that generates millions in revenue through streams, royalties and licensing deals. But here's the kicker: with R. Kelly behind bars, Sony doesn't have to share that wealth with him. And they don't get to pay him the millions of dollars they owe him. They get to keep every penny that would have gone to R. Kelly, and that's no small amount. We are talking hundreds of millions. This isn't just speculation. It's a pattern we've seen before. Major record labels like Sony have a long history of maneuvering to maintain control over valuable music catalogs, especially when artists start to assert their independence. When an artist like R. Kelly, who's been with a label for decades, starts to consider parting ways or renegotiating terms, the label's financial interests are threatened. A free and independent R. Kelly could demand a bigger share of his earnings, take his catalog elsewhere, or license his music on his own terms. But a convicted R. Kelly? He's out of the picture, and Sony gets to hold on to the profits without interference. Think about it, R. Kelly's music is timeless. His songs are still played on radio stations, streamed on platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, and featured in movies, TV shows and commercials. Every time one of his tracks plays, money flows. But with R. Kelly locked up, that money flows straight to Sony and not to him or his estate. This is a common move in the music industry, and it's one we've called out before when it was attempted on Michael Jackson. When an artist becomes too powerful, too independent, or too costly for a label, the label has an incentive to find a way to neutralize them. And in R. Kelly's case, that neutralization came in the form of a 30-year sentence facilitated by two prosecutors who seemed all too willing to play their part. Now let's dive deeper into the strategy we've talked about in our past videos, the deliberate devaluation of an artist's music catalog. This is where things get really insidious. As we've explained before, Sony and other major record labels have been known to orchestrate scenarios that cause an artist's catalog to lose value in the public eye. Why? Because a devalued catalog is easier to buy out at a fraction of its true worth. When an artist is embroiled in scandal, legal battles, or public controversy, their brand takes a hit. The public's perception of their music shifts and the market value of their catalog plummets. This creates a perfect opportunity for a label like Sony to swoop in and acquire the rights to that catalog for pennies on the dollar. In R. Kelly's case, the allegations, the media storm, and the eventual conviction created a firestorm of negative publicity. His name became synonymous with controversy, and that controversy tainted the perceived value of his music. But here's the thing, the music itself didn't change. The songs that fans loved for decades are still the same. The streams, the royalties, the licensing deals, they're still generating massive revenue. But with R. Kelly out of the picture, Sony can capitalize on that revenue without having to negotiate with him or pay him his fair share. And if they choose to buy out his catalog, they can do so at a bargain price thanks to the damage done to his reputation. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a business strategy. We've seen it happen to other artists who dared to challenge their labels or to seek greater control over their work. When an artist tries to part ways with a label, the label doesn't just let them walk away. They fight to protect their bottom line. And in R. Kelly's case, that fight may have involved more than just contract disputes. It may have involved leveraging the legal system to ensure he was no longer a threat to Sony's profits. Which brings us back to Angel Kroll and Elizabeth Geddes. Here's the question we can't ignore. Were Angel Kroll and Elizabeth Geddes acting on behalf of Sony Records? It's a question we've raised before, and it's one we can't rule out. Now let's be clear, we don't have definitive proof that these prosecutors were on Sony's payroll. But the circumstances surrounding their actions are suspicious enough to warrant scrutiny. Their relentless pursuit of R. Kelly, their willingness to break the law, and the fact that Sony emerged as the biggest beneficiary all point to a troubling possibility. Could these prosecutors have been influenced directly or indirectly by a corporation with billions of dollars at stake? Consider this: Sony is a global conglomerate with immense resources and influence. A company like that doesn't stay on top by playing nice. They have lawyers, lobbyists, and connections that reach into every corner of the entertainment industry and beyond. If Sony wanted to ensure that R. Kelly's conviction stuck, they had the means to make it happen. Whether it was through direct payments, political pressure, or some other form of influence, we can't dismiss the idea that Kroll and Geddes were serving interests beyond their roles as prosecutors. Their documented illegal actions only add fuel to this fire. Why would two government officials risk their careers and reputations to go after one man with such ferocity? Who were they really working for? The idea that prosecutors could be swayed by corporate interests isn't at all far-fetched. The music industry has a long history of shady dealings, from payola scandals to rigged contracts. If Sony saw R. Kelly as a financial liability, an artist who might walk away with his valuable catalog, they had every reason to want him out of the way. And two prosecutors willing to bend the rules could have been the perfect tools to make that happen. Again, we're not saying we have proof of a direct payoff. But we are saying the dots connect in a way that's hard to ignore. Sony's gain, R. Kelly's loss, and two prosecutors who broke the law to make it happen. That's the story we're left with. So where does this leave us? R. Kelly is serving a 30-year sentence, a punishment that many argue is disproportionate, especially when you consider the legal violations committed by the prosecutors who put him there. Sony Records meanwhile is reaping the rewards, collecting the profits from his music while he sits behind bars. Then Angel Kroll and Elizabeth Geddes? They've faced no accountability for their documented illegal actions. The system that was supposed to deliver justice has instead delivered a windfall for a corporate giant. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.